Reviews LS501 review format. Usually, reviews, especially of written materials, but also of journals and I guess some electronics materials, will have this format. Of course, the bibliographic information is very important because we have to have all the elements to identify the resource. Then we may have a brief description of what it's the material about or the book about. Then we have some content and they may explain what it is in the material. Then we may have some information about the author. Though we may not find this in every review, it is very important because we can through the review, if he talks about the author, we can find what other works the author has written, and that serves us as a guideline on their work. And finally, we will have an evaluation according, of course, to the person doing the review. So we have to be very careful about evaluations because it is a subjective matter. We can say that bibliographic information, description, content, and authorship are more objective. But when it comes to evaluation, it's a subjective matter, and it depends on the person doing the review. Some of the review limitations, of course, are coverage gaps, and this has to do with that's the difference between the number of materials that are being published yearly and the number of materials or books that get to be reviewed. And there's a large gap. According to the textbook, in the US, there are around 60 to 70,000 books being published a year, while we only get to 6 to 7,000 of review a year. So that what it means is only 10% of the books being published are reviewed. So there's a large gap there. And of course, we have to think that it doesn't make a book less, better or lesser if it doesn't get reviewed. So we have to be very careful because we're missing a lot of books that are not being reviewed. In terms of timeliness, and this is the difference between the review date versus the day of the resource is available at the library. And then we can have a gap here in time. The other gap was on coverage. This is on time because it takes a little bit longer to a resource to be reviewed. And as we know, we as librarians like to have the most current materials in our library. Then, and this had to do with what I said before in terms of the review format, is polling punches, either positive or negative review. We have to take into consideration that every evaluation is a subjective evaluation. It's done by a person, not by a machine, but by a person like us. So we may have negative or positive reviews, and what it means is that we have to be very careful because even though we may have our favorite reviewers, we always have to be careful on the possibility that the reviewer is pulling a punch against the author in favor or positive or negative reviews. Again, beware because reviews are subjective, the evaluated portion at least. Then we have what they call a tag system or a rank system. And the problem here is sometimes we don't understand what that means, or there is not an explanation of what it means. So if one book has 2 stars, what does that mean? They use tags because it's easier for them, and it doesn't take as much space as a full review would take. So if they have a book with 4 stars, well, I guess it would mean it's a very good book. But what does the star mean exactly? We don't know. Finally, we have differences in opinions, and this is true even for the classics, because people's opinions change with time and of course with the reviewer. So one reviewer may say that one book is worth getting for your collection, while other reviewers say that it's not worth getting. That may be true. The other thing is that as time goes by, one book that wasn't so great, it became popular and it became a great book with time. And we have many examples of that. The other phenomenon is also possible. One book that came out and it was regarded as a great book, then it loses importance through time. So these are some of the limitations of reviews. However, reviews are a great tool. Why? Because we don't have the time to read, books ourselves. Especially if we're talking about 60 to 70,000 books a year that are being published in the U.S. So we don't have enough time to read all the books. So we need to get use of reviews, especially of and let me say something too that it is very important. Here we have links to online reviews. Now we have an advantage too, of course, is that we can use reviews that are done by readers, by regular readers, and they are of much value. I, for example, and I'm sure you do, when I'm going to get something for my home, it may be an electronic or maybe a book or a fiction that I want to read. I don't only read the professional reviews, I also read reviews done by people like me. And sometimes I do find them more informative. So take that into consideration too. Here we have links for some of the reviews that are online, and if you go to your textbook, you will find other important reviews.